Danica, and welcome back to a new Writing Nook for the first time in 4 years. If you thought that this channel was completely dead, I really wouldn't blame you, because I kind of thought so too. We have so much to catch up on, I honestly am having a hard time figuring out where to start. Let's start at the very beginning, where we left off 4 years ago. Crazy that my last video on YouTube is a timer vlog, which some folks are using regularly. I hope you're enjoying it if you are. But the last vlog that I made on YouTube, I believe, was a NaNoWriMo video for NaNoWriMo 2021, I'm gonna say. And I was working on Project Red, which is so crazy for me because that is so many projects ago. I left you guys on a cliffhanger about NaNoWriMo. So let me reveal how that went. Drum roll, please. If I can't figure out how to make the drum roll sound, here it is. I did not win NaNoWriMo 2021. If I remember correctly, I got about 30,000 words in Project Red, and then I just kind of fell off. And part of the reason I stopped really doing much on YouTube or anything on YouTube is I also really stopped writing at right around that time. So fall 2021 was right when I was starting to apply for grad school, and I had to get all my applications together. I had to take a few tests. And so at the very end of November, I had to stop writing in order to start studying and take like a last minute test that I needed to apply for school. And then immediately after that, I kind of dove into all of the application prep that it takes to go to grad school, and that really swept me away for months and months and months. And in 2022, I got into grad school, which was fabulous, but then I had to really upplant my life. So I was moving to a new city, I was starting a new school, I was quitting my old job and sort of redefining what I wanted to do with my life. And let me tell you, I didn't write at all. I basically completely stopped writing, which is part of the reason why I stopped really doing YouTube at all. So my break from writing was partially because of grad school. That's a big part of it. And same thing with the break for YouTube. I just didn't have any time anymore. But I'll say another part of it is that I was having some serious issues with Project Red, which I can get into maybe in a different upcoming video if you guys are interested in that. But basically, I had some big structural issues with Project Red that I was having a really hard time getting through. And as I was trying to work through them, I did what is now my habit. And I came up with and sort of fell in love with the idea for a story that would come before Project Red and actually make the series a duology. And the story before I started calling Project Maroon. So Project Maroon actually was the story that I was noodling around with most at the beginning of graduate school, even though I wasn't really writing. If I spent any time kind of daydreaming about writing or taking notes down or jotting dialogue or having characters talk to each other in my mind, it was pretty much entirely Project Maroon as opposed to Project Red. And I believe in November of 2023, I took another stab at NaNoWriMo. So November of that year, I picked back up writing again, and I did a draft of Project Maroon. And I won that NaNoWriMo. I actually got a full draft through. I pretty much knew that I hadn't really drafted even approximately the story I wanted. I again had severe structural issues. You'll notice a theme. You'll notice a theme of me having severe structural issues and then pivoting into a new project as if that's gonna fix it, and I'm not the problem. It's me, I'm the problem, it's me. Okay, so getting into 2024, graduate school is really ramping up. I started my own gig, freelancing essentially, and was ramping up my own work. So I was getting busier and busier in 2024 with work and with school. So I really did not write very much. I basically put Project Maroon and Project Red and Project Order, all that stuff, on ice and did not really touch it until 2025. So also in 2025, I joined a writing club at a local bookstore, and once a month was really kind of getting my hit of inspiration. And so I really was starting to dive back into writing, but I consistently, again, found myself not pulled towards Project Maroon. I actually found myself pulled towards an entirely different story in a different world. So all three of the prior projects I've talked about on YouTube, Project Red, Maroon, and Project Order, way back in the beginning, if anyone remembers that, They're all actually set in the same world. They're set in the same timeline. Project Red and Maroon are about 20 years earlier, before the Project Order series would occur. So that whole time I was working with the same world building. I have had an entirely different concept idea that I have toyed around with for a long time, and I have never really let myself dive into this concept because the world building for this new idea really scared me, and it felt like a big project to bite off of. The other thing is that I just didn't want to jump ship again on a project. I realized that I have a pattern of having a project, thinking there's an issue, and trying to go back in time. So I had resisted moving on to this other project, moving on to this other world for a while. But what convinced me is, number one, this project has some particular elements about it that make it much easier to structure than all of my prior projects. So I would get kind of like an accidental boost in areas that I'm clearly very weak in, and that might help me actually get across the finish line. So that's number one. It has some structural elements that are very clearly laid out that I can really lean on heavily, and I think could allow me to kind of get fully over the hump of writing it. The second thing is that the world building, as soon as I started thinking about it, started coming way easier than I thought it was going to. And as I let myself play around with it, the ideas were kind of just popping out of all over the place. And I very quickly had a skeleton of a structure that's honestly more developed, more launching points for fitting in the narrative arc than I have had on any of my prior world building. And I will say world building, I think, is one of my weakest points, because actually a lot of my issues with structure relate to my world building. In any case, I know, why do I write fantasy if I am terrible at world building? I don't know. The heart wants what it wants. But so in August of last year, I finally, after noodling around with this project for a while, was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna start jotting things down and being more serious and dedicated about the story, because it's not leaving me alone. And I think maybe I could get across the finish line with this story, get some practice in, and then have skills built to go back. I will say I fully intend to write every story that I have been working on. Red, Maroon, and Order are all stories that I think I really want to tell at some point. It just might not be right now. So my new project is called PALM. It's an acronym for the title. So Project PALM. After I pressed full steam ahead on Project PALM in August, I really went into serious brainstorming and researching mode, because this project has, although it's high fantasy, it is sort of allegorical to some real life events that have happened in the world. So I was doing a lot of research on the real life stuff and working on building out the world building that would mirror those things. And I got through a full set of world building brainstorming, same for all of my characters, and I had a complete outline with a full structure and arc for the story, which, as crazy as it is to say, really is better than anything I've had before, which was really making me feel good. So in fall of last year, I began trying to draft this story, and I got probably 5,000 words in before I had to pause, because I needed to move. My lease was up, I'm moving in with my partner, and so we had to do just a ton of apartment search stuff. And apartment searching is so stressful that I knew I needed to take a break, and we were headed into the holidays. So I said, I'm just gonna take a pause on this. But for the first time, I'll say, when taking a pause with a project, I didn't worry at all about coming back to it. I knew for sure I would come back to it as soon as these things that took up all my time were out of the way. So we got through the end of last year into this year. At the beginning of this year, after moving into this new apartment and putting it together for about 3 weeks, I think, I figured I was settled enough in my life to get going on writing again. So in February, I started a daily drafting challenge, and I wrote basically an average of 1,000 words a day for 30 days. So I cleared I think I am at 35,000 or 38,000 in the draft by the beginning of March. Those 30,000 words basically got me to the end of Act 1, which is a little late. Part of that is because I know, and I knew at the time, I was starting writing the story too early. I was basically writing scenes that would for sure happen before the start of the book. But part of the reason I did that is I personally wanted to flesh that out and wanted to start from that early place. And also I hoped that by drafting it this way, it would make it more clear where I actually should start. Because it wasn't exactly clear at what point the beginning is. I just know the beginning has to probably be after where I really started. So that was great. I got all the way through Act 1 and then I started to get into Act 2. And this book, what's unique about it and different from all of my prior books is it has a very strong mystery investigation element to it. Since I'd gotten all the way through Act 1, I got to the start of Act 2 and I realized that while I know a lot about how this mystery is going to play out, I did not really know enough to be able to fudge my way through these clues. Like, I hadn't gotten far enough in the brainstorming process to start plotting where clues would be. I had a broad sense of what types of clues they could find, but I had kind of hit a wall with brainstorming. And I find for my own creative process, I have to iterate between just from the armchair coming up with ideas and actually writing scenes, because I find I come up with so many more ideas for the story when I'm writing the scene. So if I get super stuck brainstorming, I have to start writing, and then I'll get enough ideas I can go back to brainstorming. So by the end of Act 1, I realized I had enough ideas to go back to brainstorming, and it was gonna do me a ton of good if I really did just go back to the drawing board and start trying to plot out these clues, because I am an extremely novice mystery writer, and I knew that just diving into this wasn't really gonna do me any good. So that's where I've been for the last few months. That kind of catches you up to date on what I am currently doing writing-wise. So why am I back? Why am I here on YouTube? Why am I reviving my mostly dead channel? The short answer is that I love Authortube. I have always loved Authortube. I have been lurking low these many years. I am a natural lurker, I will say. Before I started my YouTube channel, my default state on the internet is to watch content and not interact at all, like leave no trace. I am a true ghost as my default personality. And one of the good things about doing YouTube is that it actually encouraged me to put myself out there by making videos, obviously, but also responding to comments and talking to people and meeting folks and finding community here online. And when I stopped making YouTube videos, I basically sort of retreated back to my default state. So I have been here all along. I have been watching. I have seen. I have just had too much social anxiety to pop back on and respond to comments when I couldn't even make videos. So if you have left me a comment at any point in these 4 years, I have certainly seen it. I'm very sorry I did not respond. I may not get back to responding to everyone who has commented who I have not responded to, but from here on out, I would like to get in the habit of commenting back again. But all of that is a digression. Point is, I love Authortube. I've always loved Authortube. And I have thought for a long time about coming back, but for a while I wasn't writing regularly, and so I wasn't sure that YouTube was going to be a motivation to keep writing, or if it was just going to be a distraction from writing. So now that I've built up a much stronger writing routine where I really am writing regularly, I really am confident in the project that I'm working on, I really do see the momentum, I know it's going to sustain, it feels like a lot better time for me to come back and start documenting on YouTube. And partially because I love Authortube so much, I do feel a little bit of like wanting to give back to the community. I love watching people go through their writing journey, and I find so much inspiration from folks who get out there and share, and I would love to sort of give that back to folks. So if you like watching folks go through their own writing journey and you find, you know, yourself in their struggles and inspiration from their successes, then I invite you to come back along on my journey. And relatedly, a big part of why I'd like to come back is I would really like to engage more in the writing community. Especially now that I'm writing more and writing more seriously, I get so much value, I have found, from talking to other folks who are writing and getting out there and meeting people. So I would love to hear from you all. If you're here and you're watching this and you've made it this far, please leave me a little comment and let me know how you are doing. What are you up to? What's writing life been for you? What's happened to you in the last 4 years? Or if you are a new subscriber, I have shockingly received new subscribers throughout these 4 years of folks who joined on to what looks like a dead channel. And if you are one of those folks, thank you so much for being here and for putting your faith in that I would come back. Here I am. I would love to meet you. Leave me a little comment. So what can you expect from me going forward? My goal is to get up at least one video a month. They will either be sit down chatty conversations like this where I kind of update you on my writing, or aspirationally I would like to start making a few vlogs again because I really did like those and it is fun to be able to look back on sort of your life and see what's been going on. So I might be dragging you around to a few coffee shops or just sitting here in my new writing nook and working on my story. I also have a few fun, exciting collabs that might be coming up, so keep an eye out for that. So there is a strong possibility you will see me more than once a month, but in terms of these sit down edit vlogs, I'll be once a month. That is gonna be all for me on this video. I would tease the next video, but I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be, so I can't do that. But there will be more content from me over the next few weeks. You can rest assured on that. So, excited to see you all. Thank you so much for coming along, and I will see you all next time. Bye. So what have you guys been up to?